ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something bold, maybe even a little uncomfortable egg. When did we start believing that sharing our struggles is the same as solving them? We live in a time where we've confused storytelling with transformation. We're encouraged to talk, to vent, to express. And yes, there's a place for that, our worth. But what happens when telling becomes our default action and doing becomes an afterthought? What happens when we're more committed to broadcasting our pain than breaking free from it? Let me be clear. This isn't a call for silence. It's a call for alignment. Alignment between what we say and what we actually do. You see, if every day we're telling the world how stuck we feel, how lost we are, how nothing is working, then we're not only reinforcing the problem, we're making it a permanent part of our identity. We live in a world where it's become second nature to talk about our goals, our struggles, our dreams, and our pain. Social media has given us a platform where expression often feels like progress. We share our feelings, write long captions about our hardships, and speak about what we want to do. But in all this storytelling, we forget that real change never comes from speaking about what we're going through. Change is born in execution. It's built in the silent, unseen hours when no one is watching, and you choose to get up and do something about your life instead of just explaining it. There's nothing wrong with expression. Sometimes we need to vent, to connect, to let things out. But if expression becomes a habit without action, it becomes a trap. It convinces us we're moving forward when we're just moving in circles. Telling people what you're planning to do doesn't bring you closer to it. Describing your vision doesn't build it. Declaring your intentions does not equal completing your mission. It only feeds the illusion that something is happening. The brain actually gives us a small reward when we talk about our goals. It releases a bit of dopamine that makes us feel good. But that feeling tricks us. It makes us feel accomplished without accomplishing anything. We start mistaking discussion for discipline. That's the danger of narration. It gives you comfort, but it steals your urgency. It gives you applause, but it delays your progress. While you're talking about the mountain, someone else is climbing it in silence. The most successful people don't need to speak about what they're going through all the time because They're too focused on building something greater than their struggle. They're not broadcasting their battles. They're winning them. Worth. They don't spend hours explaining what's going wrong. They spend that energy fixing it. They aren't shouting their goals from the rooftops. They're waking up early, staying late, falling, learning, failing, adjusting, and trying again. There's a reason most transformation happens in silencing. It's because action speaks a language the world understands without needing translation. Execution doesn't need to be justified. It just is. It just works. It just moves. When you stop narrating and start executing, you experience an internal shift. You begin to trust yourself more. You realize that confidence doesn't come from convincing others. It comes from proving something to yourself. Every time you take a step without announcing it, you reclaim your power. You shift your energy from speaking about what's possible to proving what's possible. You stop trying to inspire others with words and start inspiring with action. Execution isn't glamorous. It's often boring, quiet. It's lonely, but it's where growth lives. It's where character is formed. It's where dreams stop being ideas and start becoming outcomes. The truth is, the world is full of dreamers and talkers. And that's not a bad thing. But what separates those who create change is the simple choice to stop talking about it and start doing something about it. There's a powerful truth that many people overlook in their personal development journey. Your identity isn't shaped by your words, intentions, or how you describe yourself to others. It's shaped by your consistent actions, by what you repeatedly do, and by how you respond when no one is watching. We often get caught in the trap of saying things like, I'm working on myself, I'm trying to change, or I'm figuring it out. But those phrases, or worth, no matter how well intentioned, don't carry the weight of evidence. Real change doesn't need to be announced. It needs to be lived. You can call yourself anything you want, but if your actions don't align with it, the title is empty. It's easy to label yourself as disciplined, motivated, or driven. What's not easy is living like that every day, especially when the motivation fades and the obstacles show up. People may listen to your words, but they believe your behavior. They believe what you show them through patterns, choices, and effort. That's how your identity is formed. Not by what you say you are, but by what you prove over time you consistently do. If you say you're a writer, but you don't write, you're not a writer. If you say you're a leader, but you never take initiative or responsibility, you're not a leader. Identity isn't self-declared. It's self-earned. And it's earned through repetition, resilience, and the commitment to show up regardless of how you feel. Every time you choose to follow through instead of making an excuse, you add another brick to the foundation of your true identity. Every time you push through discomfort and take action despite uncertainty, you redefine what's possible for yourself. Those moments may seem small and insignificant in isolation, but over time, they compound. They build trust between you and yourself. That internal trust is the beginning of true confidence. Not the kind that relies on praise or approval, but the kind that says, I know who I am because I've seen what I do. It's a quiet, unshakable confidence that's forged in private victories. Too many people want to feel like the aspire to become without doing what that person does. They want the identity, but not the habits. They want the recognition, but not the routine. But the truth is, the path to becoming who you want to be is paved with daily decisions. It's built through consistency, not conversation. You can reinvent yourself completely, not by convincing others with words, but by consistently embodying a different standard. You can choose to show up with discipline even when it's hard, with integrity even when no one will notice, and with drive even when there's no immediate reward. That's the kind of behavior that reshapes your self-image from the inside out. Over time, people stop listening to what you say you're working on and start noticing the difference in how you show up. That's how you shift from wanting to improve to someone who is actually changing, not just in appearance, but in identity. Emotions are powerful. They can drive us, fuel us, and even ignite something deep within us. But emotions, by their very nature, are fleeting. They rise and fall like waves, sometimes overwhelming, and sometimes absent altogether. Relying on emotion alone to move forward in life is like building your house on shifting sand. One minute you feel ready, the next you're discouraged. One day you're motivated, the next you're drained, and if you keep waiting to feel right before you act, you'll stay stuck in a cycle of inaction, watching time pass while others move ahead. The truth is, emotion feels powerful, but movement is power. Emotion might inspire you for a moment, but movement creates the momentum that carries you through even when the inspiration runs dry. You cannot depend on a perfect emotional state to begin. The successful, the disciplined, the game changers of the world, they don't rely on motivation. They rely on systems, on habits, on structure. They wake up and get to work not because they feel like it, but because they've trained themselves to move anyway. They understand that feelings are visitors, but actions leave footprints. And it's those footprints, repeated daily, that lead to real progress. Emotion tells you what you want. Movement shows you what you're willing to do to get it. You might feel passionate about your goals, but if you never move your feet, that passion becomes frustration. It transforms into bitterness, and you start telling yourself stories like, maybe I'm not meant for this, or maybe it's just not my time, when in reality, all you needed was to move when you didn't feel ready. Movement is the great equalizer. You don't have to be the smartest, the strongest, or the most talented person in the room. But if you're the one who moves when others hesitate, who takes action when others complain, who keeps going when others quit, then you will always separate yourself from the crowd. Emotion might give you the fire, but only movement fans the flame. Movement leads to feedback. It leads to learning. It leads to failure, yes, but failure that teaches. Emotion leads to imagination. Movement leads to evolution. When you move, you discover new parts of yourself. You find strength you didn't know you had. You uncover clarity that talking or thinking could never give you, because action reveals answers that emotion can only guess at. The most incredible part of all this is that movement itself creates emotion, not the other way around. You want confidence. Do the thing that scares you. You want motivation? Take the first step and then the next. You want belief? Show up when you least feel like it. And watch your own mind be surprised by your consistency. You are not stuck. You're just not moving. And you don't have to wait for motivation to get started. You just have to move. Once you begin, the emotion you were waiting for often shows up later as a reward, not a requirement. Validation is one of the most addictive forms of emotional comfort. When we express our struggles, share our dreams, or open up about our goals, and someone responds with encouragement or praise, we feel seen, supported, and temporarily satisfied. But here's the trap. Validation feels like progress, but it isn't. It's a momentary emotional high that gives the illusion that something has moved forward when, in fact, nothing has changed. We begin to crave applause instead of results. We start measuring our progress by how many people agree with us, cheer for us, or tell us we're doing great. Even if we haven't taken a single meaningful step, the more we chase validation, the more we tie our self-worth to someone else's opinion, and that becomes a dangerous form of dependency. When your actions become driven by the desire to be liked, noticed, or approved of, you begin to drift away from your purpose. You start editing your efforts to impress people rather than achieve something meaningful. You might hesitate to take bold steps because you fear judgment. You might stop taking risks because someone might not understand. You may even shrink your ambition to fit into someone else's comfort zone. That's what validation does. It steals your authenticity and replaces it with performance. You become more focused on how you look doing the work than actually doing the work. You become more invested in looking committed than in being committed. But results don't care if people liked your process. They only care whether you finished what you started, whether you built something real, whether you transformed. Real growth happens in silence, in solitude, in sacrifice, where the only applause comes from the sound of your own discipline. It's not about being seen working. It's about doing the work regardless of who's watching. Validation is external. Results are internal. And when you stop seeking permission to rise, you start realizing you never needed anyone to approve your greatness in the first place. You are worth. You don't need someone to tell you that you're improving. You'll feel it. You'll know it when your habits change, when your thoughts shift, when your resilience sharpens. You'll notice that your standards are higher, your circle is tighter, your excuses are fewer, and your energy is stronger. There is a quiet pride that comes from building something no one sees until it's undeniable. That's what real fulfillment is made of, not empty compliments or superficial attention. but the deep, unshakable pride that comes from knowing you kept your promises to yourself. Validation will fade. Compliments will fade, but results remain. They speak for themselves. They open doors. They change your reality. They remind you that progress is measured not by how loud the crowd cheers, but by how consistently you show up when no one is clapping. If you build for applause, you'll always be chasing noise. But if you build for outcomes, you'll always be chasing growth. And growth always pays off long after the noise is gone. There comes a point in every person's life where they must realize that repeating the same story over and over again does not heal the pain. It preserves it. When you continue to tell people about the same setbacks, the same frustrations, the same disappointments, you're not just sharing a chapter of your life. You're reliving it. And the more you relive it, the more it becomes embedded into your identity. You start to believe that you are that story. You start to wear it like a badge, thinking that because it happened to you, it defines you. But stories are meant to evolve. They're meant to move forward. The old chapter might explain where you've been, but it should never dictate where you're going. There is something deeply liberating about letting go of the story that no longer serves your growth. It doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It means acknowledging that it happened and still choosing to write something new. Your past may have shaped you, but it doesn't own you or worth the moment you stop giving your energy to what broke you is the same moment you start giving power to what can rebuild you. And rebuilding doesn't start with a miracle. It starts with a mindset. It starts with the belief that you are more than what you went through. It starts with the decision to stop narrating your past and start creating your future. Too often, we use our story as an explanation for why we're not where we want to be. We say things like, it's just hard for me because of what I've been through, or people don't understand my journey. But if you're always explaining why you're stuck, you'll never actually move. And the more detailed the explanation becomes, the stronger the mental chains become. You trap yourself inside a cycle where your story becomes your ceiling. You forget that the same energy it takes to repeat the old story could be used to write a better one. Transformation begins with a single choice to stop being a prisoner of your past narrative and start becoming the author of a new one. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't need the perfect plan. You just need to stop playing the same scene over and over again in your mind and start imagining what the next scene could look like if you took control. Even small changes in your routine, your environment, your attitude. These are new sentences in your next chapter. These are the building blocks of a different identity. It's not about forgetting your story. It's about learning how to tell it in a they empowers you instead of weakening you. You don't have to erase it. You have to evolve past it. You have to stop seeing yourself as the victim and start seeing yourself as the writer. And writers don't live in chapter 3 forever. They keep going. They keep turning the page. They understand that the best part of the book isn't behind them. It's waiting to be written through courage, discipline, and belief. There's a unique power that exists in living your truth so fully and so consistently that you no longer need to explain who you are. People see it. Worth. They feel it. They experience it in your presence, your energy, your discipline, your work ethic. You don't have to convince the world of your progress when your life begins to speak for itself. When you take massive ownership of your growth and align your actions with your values, your life becomes the most authentic and powerful message you could ever deliver. It becomes a reflection of what you believe, what you fight for, what you're building, and what you're becoming. No speech, no social media caption, no conversation can carry the same weight as the quiet consistency of someone living with purpose. In a world that's constantly talking, broadcasting, sharing, it's easy to fall into the belief that the louder you are, the more impact you make. But real impact doesn't come from noise. It comes from substance. It comes from what you practice behind the scenes. It comes from the hours you put in when no one's looking. The promises you keep to yourself and the standard you hold even when there's no applause. That's what separates those who just speak about change from those who actually live it. When your actions are rooted in purpose and backed by relentless consistency, you don't need to advertise who you are. Your discipline does the talking. Your progress becomes visible even in silence. There is a certain level of peace that comes from knowing you don't need external validation anymore. You're not waiting for someone to recognize your effort, to compliment your grind, or to affirm your direction. You already know who you are because you've earned that identity through action. The mirror becomes your witness. Your results become your resume. You begin to walk differently, not with arrogance, but with the quiet confidence of someone who knows they are showing up day after day for the vision they believe in. People begin to ask how you changed, what your secret is, how you stay so focused. And all you did was choose to live your life in alignment with your goals instead of just talking about them. The truth is, people are inspired not by what you say, but by what you consistently do. They are moved by the example you set, not the words you speak. When you become the living example of growth, you give others silent permission to rise as well. You remind them that transformation is possible, that change is real, that discipline still works. You make your life a message, not through speeches or statements, but through showing up when it's hard, through choosing integrity over shortcuts, through staying grounded when things get chaotic. You become the proof that it's possible, and that's the most powerful way to lead, to inspire, and to create lasting impact.